friends, it's Carla here today for the Southern Ridge Trading Company blog and website. Today we're making a coffee card and we're creating some faux patina finish on some beautiful chipboard stars and using a Southern Ridge Trading Company stencil to create a coffee look. So I'm just going to walk you through how I create this card and some tips and techniques. I'm using some Distress Oxide ink here with the beautiful circle stencil, and this is the 3x3 size that Southern Ridge creates, and they laser cut this themselves. It's very detailed and it really is beautiful to stencil with. So I've got two different colors here that I'm using. And I'm just using the tea dye, which is a little bit darker around the edges. You can also get this stencil in a 6x6 and I believe a 12x12. It says on their website, and I will link the blog where you'll be able to find all those products listed. So they have some wonderful stencils there, and when I saw these circles, they just reminded me of a coffee mark. So that's what started off the idea for this card. And I've got the whole background done just by moving that small stencil around. We've got a powder bag from Emerald Creek because I'm going to be using some embossing powder, and Distress Oxide stays wet a little longer, so you want to dry it with a heat tool or use a powder bag and just make sure it's dry. I've grabbed this beautiful coffee stamp. It's by Emerald Creek and it's created by Pam Bray, who is a beautiful artist. And I'm stamping with a stamp press and then using some Versamark ink. And I've done that a couple times, and then I'm just doing some Distress Oxide ink. Now we are embossing this image, but I do like to have just a layer of colored ink so that if there is ever any areas where the embossing powder doesn't stick, you still have a colored image underneath. We're using the Emerald Creek Just Java Aroma Powder. They have a whole line of aroma powders which smell amazing, and I'm embossing with that. This is a brown, nice dark brown, coffee colored embossing powder, and it is fine. So it beautifully embossed that image on the background. And then I'm taking a small piece of paper and just stamping out that coffee cup again. And I'm embossing with the Canadian Maple Aroma Powder, and this is an amazing scent. So these scented powders will actually smell while you're heating them as well as after. Now I'm taking these chipboard stars. I love these kind of hand-drawn look of these stars, and these are laser cut and beautifully detailed by Southern Ridge as well. I've got a quickie glue pen that I'm going over the surface of these stars with. It lays down a layer of glue that looks a little bluish, but it actually dries clear and tacky. So you're going to want to set those aside and let them dry completely before you attempt to foil them. So that's why I put the glue on there, I set them aside, and I'm going to color my image. So I'm using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers to color in this image, and ideally a Bristol cardstock or a watercolor cardstock would be the best thing to use, but I just had a scrap of white cardstock in front of me, so that's what I used. So I layered on the lightest color, then the second lightest, and then the darkest color. And you'll see here that I try to blend it in with the water brush, and if it was Bristol or watercolor it would blend really nicely, but just because it's the plain paper, the paper really soaks it up and it doesn't move around too much. But that's okay, it does blend it a bit, and then I end up going back over it with the marker, and you'll see here I use a little bit different technique for the next area that I color. And that's okay, it's just trial and error sometimes. And So here I'm using the lighter brown marker that you saw, and then a little bit darker, and then the zigs blend nicely even on their own without water. So just by using that lighter color marker over top, it blended those colors well. So I just decided to do that on the red cup layer, and I just laid down those colors again, the lighter and then the two darker shadow colors, and then blended them in with the lightest pink there, and they blended nicely and still left a little highlight in the center. The zigs are really nice, easily controlled marker to use. They have that brush tip and they have beautiful colors to them, and they do blend really well. So here we've got a blue color that I'm laying down, and then I'm going over it with a little bit darker blue and blending that out with the lighter marker. So they are a watercolor, water-based marker, and by using the embossing on the outside, you don't have to worry about any of your ink running, and it kind of holds it in if you are using water, but certainly as long as you use a permanent ink, you are fine to use those. Now I'm just taking a little bit of Distress Oxide ink in the brown to go around the edge, just to get rid of that white edge from where I cut it out, and then it just softens that. Really love that maple embossing powder. It's so shiny. Now I've grabbed my stars. They're nice and dry. They are tacky. You could also use the Ranger sticky stuff embossing powder. That would work well as well, but the little quickie glue pen is perfect. And what I'm doing is I'm laying on the gold foils. There's 3 different kind of shades of gold, and I want to go for a bit of a patina look. So I've got like the shiny and the matte gold, and then I'm going to grab the blue and go over that. And here Erica's showing you up close what that looks like. And just by layering on those in different orders, you get such a nice look to that. And then when you go over it with the blue on top, it really complements that gold. So it really brings out that patinaed look, and you can easily embellish any of your chipboard to really have that shiny look, but they are really rustic. So I love, especially with these stars, doing that on these. And if there's any spots that you find aren't grabbing the foil, you can go over it again with the pen, let it dry, and then add some more foiling. And those foils last for a long time. So I grabbed a spool of some thread that's gold and is going to match and complement those colors, and I'm just adding it onto my background with some foam tape. You could also use a glue dot, but I knew I wanted to pop up that top mug, so I added the foam tape and added the mug right on top of that, and then I'm just gluing that card base right onto the background. So I really love the colors in the background with the stenciling, and then the red, the pop of red with the cup, and then the foiled stars. Really love how that turned out on top of that coffee image. These are my new favorite buttons. Galore has come out with some sequin and pearl sets that are just beautiful. So I've been really enjoying putting these on my cards lately. There's little glossy dots and little pearls, and they have such beautiful colors. So that is a look at the front. And then I really wanted to use that stencil again to do a negative coffee image on the inside. So all I did was lay down some Distress Oxide ink, spritz it with a water spritzer, and I'm just layering this on my piece of paper. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I just dabbed it with a piece of paper and a tissue just so that it would soak up anything that seeped through. And I made sure it was nice and dry with my heat gun. And it really does look like the coffee rings. I have a little coffee sentiment that's from a Your Next stamp set. And because I'm going to emboss the sentiment, I'm using some Versamark, laying down a couple layers of Versamark, and then laying down some of the Distress Oxide ink. Again, just in case the embossing powder doesn't stick to everything, I don't have to redo it, and the inked image is still going to show through. And normally I don't even need it, but it just helps in case. And then I'm just sprinkling on that Java embossing powder again, and it melts to such a really nice fine powder and is great for your images. And then I'm just using some tacky glue and gluing that into the inside of my card, and that's going to finish it off for a nice sentiment inside. And this card is ready to give out to some friends. So I hope this gave you some ideas of how to decorate your chipboard, how to use your stencils and use the negative images, and even how to do some coloring. So I will link below where you can find these products, and you can check on the blog for close-ups and details. Thanks so much for stopping by.